Hi, everybody. I am so excited to talk to you today about breast cancer and how much control you have over this disease, whether it's already affected you or not. I hope that during our time together, you will feel empowered and incentivized to take control of the things in your life that are moving you closer to cancer rather than farther away. So let's launch straight in with a little view of the landscape of breast cancer. In 2020, breast cancer surpassed lung to become the #1 malignant tumor in the world, with about 2.3 million new cases worldwide last year. This year, even more expected next year, increasing every year until someone derails this bullet train. And you and I are going to be the someones. In our own backyard in the United States, almost 300,000 women will be diagnosed with invasive breast cancer this year. And looking at the prevalence of cancers, breast behind skin is #1. You're most likely to die from lung cancer, but breast is #2 with 43,250 deaths predicted this year. Remember, women are 26 times more likely to develop cardiovascular disease year after year and 7 times more likely to die from heart disease than they are from breast cancer. However, over 2.5 million US women have died from breast cancer since 1970. So we have a lot of work to do. And I submit to you that it need not be so. Women have so much control over this disease. All right, so a few more quick facts for perspective. 4 million breast cancer thrivers are walking around alive and well, but they're probably fretting about recurrence. So I hope that today's discussion will be more empowering and take away some of that fret and anxiety. Men, you too can get breast cancer. About 2,800 men will be diagnosed with breast cancer this year, and 530 will die. Speaking of death, the death rate for breast cancer has gone down approximately 1.3% per year since 2011. That's thanks to earlier detection and better treatments. In fact, treatments are so good that the 5-year survival rate for node-negative cancer is now 99%. That never means that you die year 6. We like to use 5-year survival stats as doctors because this most accurately reflects the treatments that are going to be available to you when you're diagnosed, right? If I give you a 30-year survival rate, that may sound inappropriately low because that 30-year survival will reflect treatments that we were giving people 20 and 30 years ago, which may even predate Herceptin and other targeted drugs that are highly effective. Next fact, 95% of breast cancer occurs in women over 40. So despite all of us having heard of someone getting breast cancer at too young of an age, because it definitely happens all too often, the truth is 95% of all breast cancer and 97% of all breast cancer deaths occur in women who are over 40. In fact, the median age of breast cancer, meaning half at or above and half below, is 62 years old. Incidence, it's been on a really slow rise since 2004. In fact, if you look at 2010, the overall increase year after year is 0.4%, with this one little bloop in 2020 reflecting a lack of screening due to, as we all know, COVID. But this means this tiny, almost imperceptible, certainly to us just living our day-to-day lives, you're not going to feel a 0.4% increase, but you know what that translates to is 1,200 cases of invasive breast cancer added to our incidence year after year with no sign of stopping. I'm really grateful that out in the media, we're able to talk more freely and openly about breast cancer. It used to be such a taboo subject, right? But now we see celebrities and people we admire coming forward with their journeys, their stories, personal ones and family members. And I think that has created in part this awareness of maybe somebody's friend's cousin who got breast cancer at age 26 and sadly died from it. And it creates this false perception that the incidence is rising and it's happening younger and younger. And the stats bore that out because breast cancer had been rock stable in women under 50 for decades. Not so anymore. So hot off the press from late 2023, there was this study that looked at patterns in cancer incidence among young people defined as under 50 years old in the US from 2010 to 2019. So they took all the cancers, men and women, from 17 NIH SEER databases and found that there were just over 560,000, so over 500,000 people with early onset, defined as age under 50, early onset cancers. And guess what? The number one cancer was breast. So breast cancer was the most commonly diagnosed, but here's the alarming part. The age standardized incidence rates per 100,000 women in 2010, 21.25, in 2019, 23.74. So the annual percentage change is actually plus 0.91. Year after year, we're getting more and more breast cancer at younger and younger ages since 2010. I mean, if back in 1990 you had asked me to guess where we would be in 2024, for sure I would have thought there'd be less breast cancer, not more, right? Like, aren't we supposed to be smarter, bigger, taller, faster, stronger than we were 30 plus years ago? Apparently not. However, I believe we can reverse this disturbing trend together. I want to talk about a few risk factors that you cannot change, not to freak you out, but just to educate you. And then it incentivizes you, hopefully, to take more control of the things that you absolutely can change. So the number one risk factor for breast cancer over which you have Zippo control is being born female. So 1 in, pop quiz, 8 women gets breast cancer versus about 1.3 in 100,000 men. So for sure, being female vastly elevates risk over being male. But why would you do anything about that? Okay, so age. Aging elevates breast cancer risk. Nothing you can really do about that you want to do about it. It has nothing to do with how old you look. It's how old you biologically are. Maybe we can do some reversal of that biological aging through interventions. But one thing I like to point out is that 1 in 8 stat is not like every single morning when you wake up, you've got a 1.8 chance of getting breast cancer today. That 1 in 8 is pulled out over an entire lifetime, and it's stratified in this lovely slide by decade of life. So remember how old you are right now. And if your current age is between 20 and 30, the chances of getting breast cancer during this decade of your life, between 20 and 30, is 1 in 1,439. Far cry from 1 in 8, correct? So if you're 30 to 40, it's a 1 in 204 chance that you will get breast cancer during this decade of life. Between 40 and 50, 1 in 63. Between 50 and 60, 1 in 41. Between 60 and 70, 1 in 28. And 70 to 80, ding, 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 is your highest risk decade of life in which to get breast cancer. So there's a 4.1% chance that you will get breast cancer in your 70s, 1 in 24. And between did I say that right? Yeah. And then between 80 and 90, it's 1 in 33. So if you add up all those 1-ins, now you land at a lifetime risk of 1 in 8. And because these are rounded numbers, the actual lifetime risk percentage predicted just by being born female is 12.9%. All right, so we have being female, getting older, race. This depicts the incidence and mortality of breast cancer by race, incidence pink, mortality gray. You can see that whites and blacks have nearly the same incidence as each other up here, but relative to all other racial and ethnic groups, whites and blacks have at least 28% more breast cancer than all other ethnic groups. However, our African American sisters have 52% more death than other ethnic groups and 40% more than whites. So what's going on here is very multifactorial, and I have an entire 2-hour lecture on the nitty-gritty about ethnic disparities in breast cancer incidence and mortality. But the short version is that, as being multifactorial, it has both to do with things that are very correctable, like lack of access to quality, timely healthcare. Blacks are less likely to be insured and therefore less likely to participate in routine breast screening. Genetics and epigenetics are definitely at play here also. For example, African Americans are more likely to get cancer at younger ages and with a more aggressive tumor biology called triple negative. Approximately 22% of all cancers in Blacks are triple negative versus about 11% in most everyone else. Blacks are also more likely to be obese and have type 2 diabetes, which share underlying triggers for cancer that we'll explore a bit more in detail later. So it's a complicated scenario, but race is something you cannot change. Oh, and as much as you might wish to change your family, you can't change that either. And it's actually the family history that I'm interested in here. Why is this? What percentage of breast cancer can be attributed to an inherited genetic mutation, such as BRCA, CHEK2, PALB2? Is it, do you think 5 to 10% of breast cancer patients have a gene mutation that they got from their mom or their dad? So their family history is probably peppered with some breast, maybe ovarian, pancreatic, colon, uterine, other cancers. So 5 to 10%, 30 to 40%, 60 to 70%, 80 to 90%. Like, how strong of an association between just I have breast cancer and what's the likelihood that it came from a gene mutation? How strong is that association, do you think? 5 to 10%. Okay, so only 5 to 10% of all breast cancer can be attributed to an inherited genetic mutation, such as BRCA, CHEK2, or PALB2. This is very important because if you do have a gene mutation, you are at very elevated risk to get breast and potentially other cancers, for which we want to do some high-risk surveillance, some other potential interventions to reduce risk. So I'm not at all minimizing how important it is to find out and understand whether or not you have a genetic mutation. However, I want to emphasize the other percent then, which is 90 to 95%. 90 to 95% of all women with breast cancer cannot blame mom and dad, or maybe they can as we get into some of the other things we inherit that aren't genes. But the point is, the majority of breast cancer is not coming from a very strong underlying genetic mutation, a driver that you probably have very little control over manipulating because it's just how you are. Like, I cannot will my eyes to be a different color. So just for those out there who do have a family history, when does the red flag go up and you think, maybe I should actually test for that genetic mutation? Quick pause here just to say, if you feel like testing, you probably could, because what used to be prohibitively expensive, literally $4,500 just to test for one gene BRCA, has now become across the board $250 when not approved by insurance. So the cash pay is $250 for an entire genetic panel, RNA and DNA, and usually there are around 88 genes. There are panels of different numbers of genes that we test for, depending on what you want to do. But here are your red flags that really make me think, you know what, if you're in this category, it would behoove you tremendously to go and get gene tested. Here they are. You have to have 2 relatives on the same side of the family, meaning mom or dad. You are half your dad's DNA. Your dad's family history matters as much, equally so, as your mom's. Strange misconception out there. Okay, so you need 2 relatives on the same side of the family with breast cancer prior to age 50 or ovarian cancer at any age. Number 2, if you're Ashkenazi Jewish, you only need 1 relative with breast cancer prior to age 50 or ovarian cancer at any age. Really quickly, for those of you who are like, huh, what, why? Just by being Ashkenazi Jewish in descent, 1 in 40 people, men and women, carry a BRCA gene mutation, one of the founder mutations. as opposed to everybody else running around, which is 1 in about 500. So now we only ask for one relative to have these cancers to raise our red flag. Excuse me, if you yourself have had breast cancer prior to menopause, if you've had a subtype triple negative under the age of 60, if you have had 2 primaries, so not one that came back again in the same exact spot, but 2 totally different breast cancers, any men in the family tree, just one man with breast cancer raises the flag. Any known genetic mutation carrier with a direct bloodline to you obviously elevates your risk. Speaking of which, so if your mother has a known gene mutation, it's not a fait accompli that you got that mutation. It's always 50-50 that you get it from an affected parent. If there's pancreatic cancer plus 1 ovarian or breast, and if there's just a whole lot of cancer going on, so 3 or more of the following: breast, ovarian, pancreatic, prostate, colorectal, gastric, uterine, or melanoma. So if you can already see that you meet these testing criteria, I encourage you to meet with a genetics expert or just your family doctor to inquire about testing. All right, so we can't blame the parents most of the time. Where's all this cancer coming from that apparently is just on the up and up, doesn't stop? If we look back at Asian immigrants in Los Angeles and Hawaii between 1982 and 92, you will see that they developed breast cancer at rates that were over 100% higher than their Japanese and Chinese relatives still in the homeland. It turns out that the more they assimilated into our culture and the more quickly they did so with our Big Macs and our big gulps, the higher the cancer incidence. And by the 3rd generation, their incidence is mirror image, exactly that of US native born. So here we have a little insight into what was happening back in said homelands at the same time that the immigrants were getting more breast cancer as time went by in the US. Look what was happening. The death rate in the US between 1990 and 2000 actually decreased by 15%. But in Japan, shoo, it elevated by 55%. Huh? So think about cancer, the way it actually evolves. It's not an exposure event, right, to a flu or virus. You might be diagnosed on a Tuesday, but that sinister little sucker was dividing for hundreds and hundreds of Tuesdays before you realized that it was existing. For example, a sugar cube of cancer, so a 1 centimeter cubed volume of cancer has 1 billion cells. So doing the math backwards, if a cancer divides, which it usually does approximately every 3 to 6 months, depending on your age, and not every cancer has 100% of the cells actually in a phase of division. So if you do math backwards on an average division rate of a cancer that divides, say, every 3 months, and 1 billion cells is a centimeter, and you're trying to get back to that first cell, we get out a calculator and do that math. It never fails to show you that this thing started at least 5 years ago and usually 10 plus. Same story here. So if we were looking at this change in mortality and why is there so much more death in this decade, 90 to 2000, we need to back up a little bit and go to the 70s and 80s. And what was happening there that would spark cellular changes that would manifest as an increase in mortality 10 plus years later? And the answer is that beginning in the 1970s, the growing affluence and economics of Japan, Singapore, urban areas of China, they sparked all of these westernized changes in their lifestyle. So as Asians started to chase our culture, they caught our cancer. So let's talk about our culture. You know, at some point, instead of laboring all day in the home and tending to children and preparing fresh meals, women around the world, especially in the 70s, started entering the workforce in droves, right? They led stressful, and we still do, stressful and sedentary lives that expand waistlines. We delay childbearing until later years, if at all. Not breastfeeding, eating leftover pizza for lunch, sending off that email ASAP, and then dashing home and or bumper to bumpering it in traffic if you live where I do. I ride my bike every day. But you're home just in time to throw takeout on the table and pour a glass of wine and take a load off, catch your favorite Netflix binge of the moment, and then head to bed, right? Sound familiar? Of all of these controllable, changeable factors scientifically proven to affect breast cancer risk, poor diet and nutrition choices, alcohol, lack of exercise, obesity, hormone replacement therapy, environmental toxicities, emotional stress, lack of fasting, poor sleep. There is one thing on the list that, in my heavily researched opinion, is more important than any other. And partly it's because you do it 3 to 6 times a day. You eat. Now, the key to using food to protect yourself from breast cancer is to understand that every single time you lift fork to mouth, you unleash weapons inside of your body into your tumor cell microenvironment, the fluids in the cells that bathe and support and fuel cancer, or seek and destroy it. Right? You're choosing every time you eat or don't eat, drink or don't drink. Every time you move or don't move, think or don't think something, you're messing with the water in this little bathtub that your rubber ducky cancer is sitting in, right? You want to make sure that when you chew and swallow down food, what's going into that bathtub is not everything this cancer rubber ducky loves, right? We don't need the lavender salts and the fun bubbles and the soft plush towel. You need to make sure that you are eating strategically. You don't want to give this cancer all of the little things it needs to survive and thrive. When you engage all 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, so not just the nutrition, but physical activity, restorative sleep, stress management, positive social connections, and avoiding toxic substances, when you eat, drink, move, sleep, and think strategically in an anti-estrogenic, anti-IGF-1, anti-angiogenic, anti-inflammatory way, bam! You take away all of those bubbles. The lavender salts are gone. And now that little cancer is like, oh, plain water. Oh, I guess I'll just die now. Pop, apoptosis, cancer cell suicide. All right, we're going to double click right now, though, on nutrition. Free radicals. They're really helpful. They make you breathe. They combat infection. They actually kill the cancer cells they help cause, which is ironic, but I'll take it. However, if more bad free radicals hang around than there is good to stop it, then oxidative stress results, right? And when this imbalance persists day after day for years and decades, then your body's cells and DNA just get too beat up. Sickness results. Basically, these free radicals, which are these unstable molecules that are buzzing around and just trying to steal an oxygen from the cell next to it, which then leads to this this avalanche of cell activity and disruption that creates the oxidative stress. As that goes on and on for decades, whatever cells just get the most injured are going to determine the diseases that you'll get. For example, if it's your blood vessels, hello, heart disease. If it's your muscles, fibromyalgia, intestines, irritable bowel, leaky gut, your brain, dementia, Alzheimer's. If there's excessive free radical damage in your breast tissue, then, well, cancer. All right, so we've got these oxidants, but where are all of the antioxidant heroes coming from? Plants, on average, carry 64 times the antioxidant power of meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Let that sink in. That means gram per gram. In order to ingest the antioxidant content in 1 cup of blueberries, which has a mere 57 calories and 0.3 grams of fat, the antioxidant content in that cup of blueberries would be equivalent to eating 27.5 slices of Domino's cheese pizza for a whopping 7,600 calories and 323 grams of fat, largely saturated. Okay, so yes, animal products such as cheese do have some antioxidants. Here's a study to help make this oxidative stress battle a little bit more relevant, all right? I love this study. I think for those of you who are still on the fence about how much plants matter in your diet, this is really going to tip the scales for you. It will forever change your eating. So here's the study. They took 24 hyperlipidemic men and women. So they have high cholesterol, and measures, therefore, of LDL cholesterol are a nice correlate to oxidative stress. Okay, so the higher it is, the worse it is. These people were given a sad standard American diet meal. So we've got some steak and eggs, some pancakes and bacon. You chomp that down, and we measure LDL every hour. Hour. Here comes lunch 3 hours later, 180 minutes. And the LDL level is higher, quite a bit higher than the baseline. In comes lunch, hamburger and fries, LDL up, and dinner now. Okay, so these people are going to bed with fewer antioxidants than when they woke up. And if they eat like that all the time, this is a daily, monthly, yearly barrage of oxidative stress that is flying through their systems. All right, so here's the beauty of the study. Same people, next day, same sad meal, one change, a cup of strawberries. Down, lunch. You kidding me? Your LDL cholesterol is lower than it was when you woke up that morning, and now you have that hamburger and fries, a cup of strawberries. And your body's like, really, lady? Like, do you think I can overcome that much crap in one day? I'll just bring you back to baseline, basically. Strawberries. 1 cup of strawberries, same oxidative stress-inducing meal. Okay, think about that now. What if the meal weren't pancakes and bacon and steak and eggs? What if the meal had been like steel-cut oats with some cinnamon and flax and some blueberries and strawberries and some soy milk, say? What if? Well, then the oxidative battle would be over like that, and all of those phytochemicals, those plant-based nutrients, would get released from your food and into your bloodstream and into your cells, where they stop plaque buildup. They melt fat. They zero in on that mutated wannabe cancer cell, and they fix it or kill it. Bye-bye lavender bath salts, right? It's so beautiful to think about how you have power at the end of your fork in such a simple way. If you really want to defeat cancer, then eat like you mean it. Phytonutrients equal plant warfare. So for example, you're just putting some turmeric on your rice bowl, but there's curcumin in there. You're drinking some green tea, but there's epigallocatechin gallate, EGCG, in there. Powerful weapons against breast cancer. Red grapes, maybe red wine, we'll get into that. Resveratrol, the flax seeds and avocado you eat have omega-3 fatty acids. Berries have procyanidins. Soy has genistein. Tomatoes have lycopene. Apples have anthocyanidins. Oranges have limonene. You thought it would be a lemon or a lime based on limonene. And it is in those citrus as well, but it's just more in orange, so that's why I put it. Okay, so all you have to do to release these phytochemicals that do all the fighting for you, all you have to do is chew and swallow. Meet frenemy number 1, IGF-1. Insulin, like growth factor 1, it has one mission in life, and that is to tell everybody to grow, grow, grow. This critical growth promoter works the miracle of a child becoming an adult. All right, but we only get so tall and our hands only get so big. So what's IGF doing for the rest of your adult life? We turn over about 50 billion cells a day, and IGF-1 is responsible for that cell replacement, right? Because you grow a new cell in its place. So post-exercise muscles need repairing, brain cells need protecting. We're very grateful for IGF-1 doing all that happy business inside our bodies, but your brain is super smart, tells your liver how much to make for today. Once those tasks are complete, if there's excess IGF-1 screaming at cells to grow, then grow they will. into plaque, into fat, into cancer, into metastases. Metastases grow into the lung, into the liver, into the brain, into the bone. Like, what? Somebody better slow that IGF-1 down. Turns out, happily, you're that someone. Your brain, as I said, controls how much IGF-1 for the day. And the only way to make an excess then is to consume the one and only thing that IGF-1 responds to, and that is animal protein, meat, dairy, and eggs. A study followed over 6,300 adults over age 50 for approximately 18 years. In those aged 50 to 65 years old, higher animal protein levels led to a 430% increase in cancer death and a 7,300%, so 74 times the rate of type 2 diabetes when compared to those in the low protein group. It's not compared to vegans. IGF-1 emerged as an important moderator of this association between protein consumption and mortality, since wherever the protein went, IGF-1 was sure to follow. Just like Mary and her little lamb, which ironically would really, really happen if Mary ate her lamb. Okay, notably, no such elevations in risk happened when the proteins were derived from plants, only animals. If you could not respond to IGF-1, you would have Laron syndrome, and you would be very short, which makes sense. Since you wouldn't have anyone yelling at you to grow that you could listen to, you would have medical dwarfism. But guess what else you wouldn't have? That's right. Everyone in the history of the world with Laron syndrome, drum roll please, has never had breast cancer. In fact, the only cancer documented was a single stage 1 ovarian cancer in 2017, and she's still alive. That's astounding. No cancer. No one with IGF-1 deficiency ever gets type 2 diabetes. Astounding again. So, in other words, IGF-1 is a required ingredient to create a microenvironment, bathtub water, proven to be conducive to breast cancer causation and invasiveness. In fact, women with high circulating levels of IGF-1 have 38% more estrogen-driven breast cancers than those with low IGF-1. This is one of my favorite studies to talk about because I often see women in my office who were just diagnosed with breast cancer and they don't have a gene mutation, plus or minus a family history, but they're just listening to some of the things I say about how diet and lifestyle can make such a tremendous impact on now and the future. And they're like, listen, doc, like you're really cute and all talking about the, kale. But it's too late for me. I'm overweight. I've been like this since as long as I can remember. I run out of breath running up a flight of stairs. I have breast cancer now and it's all just too late. No way, sister. Let me tell you about this study. So all you have to do is what a group of 38 obese women did following the Pritikin plan. Okay. You're going to eat a low fat, high fiber, whole food plant-based diet with daily exercise classes. Oh, wait. Ladies, before you go, let me check some blood markers. I'm going to drip your blood onto 3 different breast cancer cell lines in Petri dishes. And whoa, okay. All the cell lines show robust growth with very little apoptosis. Remember, programmed cell death or cancer cell suicide, apoptosis. Interesting. All right, everybody, run along for 2 decades and just follow the Pritikin plan. Low fat, high fiber, whole food, plant-based, daily exercise. I mean, even if you just walk briskly for 30 minutes a day, go for 2 decades. No, I'm sorry. I mean, 2 years. Wait, that's too long. I can't keep focused that long. Let's do 2 months. Actually, you know what, ladies? Come back in 2 weeks. Why don't you? All right. So they come back in 2 weeks, draw the blood, look at the markers. IGF-1, right? The bad daddy. Estradiol. So by the way, 80% of all breast cancer is fed and fueled by estrogen. 80% of all breast cancers have little receptors on the outside of the cell that is like an antenna waiting for estrogen from one of 4 sources to hit this receptor, which will then tell the cancer to multiply and divide. Believe it or not, it's actually a really good thing when you do have breast cancer to have estrogen receptors, because we can modulate that really readily, not only with drugs, but with food and with activity. But anyway, I digress to tell you that estradiol in high amounts is a bad thing when it comes to breast cancer. So having less of it is a good thing. And insulin, we're going to talk about this when we mention exercise and adipose and fat. But insulin is a direct breast cancer promoter, and it actually ups the enzyme aromatase activity, which is converting precursor steroids into yet more estrogen. So bad, bad, and bad all go down, 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 19 to 37% statistically significant. And the IGF-1 binding protein, so that little body snatcher that grabs it out of circulation, went up by 32% in 2 weeks. But what I really want you to see is the Petri dish farm. All right, so this time, new blood. Give me some new blood. I'm going to drip it on these 3 breast cancer cell lines in these Petri dishes. And okay, cell growth has dramatically slowed down. Nice work. And apoptosis, that cancer cell like explosion thing happening where it dies. It's demonstrated here by the white dot. And this is you 2 weeks ago, my friend. So your blood just went from this wimpy 1 dot wonder when it comes to cancer cell death to bam, a veritable constellation of cell suicide in 2 weeks. Okay, 2 weeks is all it takes to transform your blood into a cancer kicking machine. So no, it is never too late for you. All right, so IGF-1 ignites cancer, but so do nitrates and heme iron. Some might call processed meat by friendly names like sausage, hot dog, bacon, but the IARC, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, calls them potentially deadly. In 2015, 22 scientists from 10 different countries poured over 800 epidemiologic studies to answer the question, are red meat and processed meats bad for you? Their conclusion, okay, so the IARC is part of the WHO, the World Health Organization. In other words, they're they are bought by no one. There's no one sitting there who's funneled many millions in research dollars or just fund money for their next family trip to Italy to sway opinion, okay? So we really hang our hat on what the IARC designates as carcinogenic to humans and not, because of this level of integrity that we believe they have. All right, so the IARC, after, I'm sure they left the room, but they're locked in that room, poring over the studies, all of these, multi-ethnic researchers, scientists, and they bestowed the highest warning level possible to the consumption of processed meat, all processed meat. They labeled it flat out carcinogenic to humans with the same certainty that we would say smoking and asbestos and plutonium have on human health. They classified red meat as 1 notch down, probably carcinogenic to humans. Okay, so, I dove into the nutritional science when I was writing my book, Breast, the Owner's Manual, simply to prove with fact that every single fact I wrote in my book could be backed by credible research. I did this with every single fact in the book. There's 60 pages of references because I didn't want to spread falsehood. I knew the book would come under fire, so I wanted it to be bulletproof. And I just need to be right. Makes me delightful to be married to. So I'm diving into the nutritional science to show with science that the way I eat is the best way, which in 2017 was largely Mediterranean diet style. I'd been vegetarian for a long stretch, but then this challenge I gave to all of my residents, not my residents, they were my cohort. We were all residents at Virginia Mason in Seattle. And I'm like, hey, we're all getting like fat here in residency. Let's do the Atkins together. Huge challenge. Just long story short, 10 people started, 4 people finished, including me and 3 guys. And I peed on those strips. I was ketotic every single day without fail. But it was during that time that I didn't poop, and because all I ate was cheese, basically. And so I reintroduced chicken, turkey, and fish into my diet. So I was 28, 29 at the time, and parked it there for some sad reason now in retrospect. But anyway, prior to that, I had been vegetarian. Long story short, I have been eating now these lean meats, kind of Mediterranean diet, so much fish. Oh my gosh, like radioactive sushi for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like, never checked my mercury, didn't want to know. My husband and I were like, just give me some Toro. All right. So that was I back then. And I dive into this science to prove it that, you know, I ate tons of fruits and vegetables. Most of my plate was that, but plenty of meat. And truth be told, I was queen of the cheese platter at parties, like 5-year age Gouda, Manchego. It was gorgeous and disgusting and killed you and not good for animals. We'll get to all that. Okay. So science. All right. I was so blown away by the rock solid science about how detrimental all of this animal protein consumption was to my current and future health. But somehow, despite all of this, you know, I was reading and researching and writing, and I would write, I should say, on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I would write for 15 to 18 hours a day. I usually had good intentions. I would wake up and put my workout clothes on so that I could work out at any moment's notice in the given day of research and writing. And I usually then would take my unsweated in clothes off and get ready for bed, go to bed. Like, I just never made it. I got so absorbed by the research and the writing. But I also had a full-time job. And at the time, our triplet sons were just turned 8 on this particular day, July 5th. And they were into camp. And so people would be like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. You have a full-time job and you're writing this book and you have all these kids. And how do you do it? And I was like, I don't know. I don't parent. Like, I have no idea what my kids are doing. So in fact, after I finished the book and they started 3rd grade, I remember I took the morning off to bring them to their first day of 3rd grade. And some mom came up beside me and she's like, oh, you're Justin's mom. Who did he have for a teacher last year? And I was like, I don't know. Okay. So anyway, that's me. So I was diving into this study. She did have a point. I do. This study of the IARC ruling the morning after. You ready for this? It's really like stripping me down, telling you, because I'm embarrassed by it, but then not, because I feel like this resonates with others. They're like, you know, you don't know what you don't know. So I run downstairs, boys. I think I'm going to be like present mom today. You're going to camp. Yay. So exciting. Let me impart upon you my 1980s upbringing where bread, pasta, rice, and potatoes made you fat. So I'm a carb phobe and I'm going to make you lunch. And I'm going to take these organic turkey breast slices, processed meat. I'm going to take these organic turkey breast slices and wrap them around a mozzarella stick cheese. And you're not going to get any bread, sweetheart, because I love you. I'm going to put it in lettuce. Yay for lettuce. Okay, go, Kristi. So I put these cigarettes into their lunch boxes with some like fruit and who knows what else I did. I just know I did the turkey breast cigarette roll up. Off they go upstairs, unveiled this study for the first time in my entire life. It had been 2 years earlier at that point. It was 2017. This was 2015. I'm like, how come I didn't hear about this? But let me look into this some more. And I'm like now just pulling my hair out about how obvious it is in science that all of this animal protein and now this processed meat is so bad for you. The kids come home from camp. I'm like, thank God they're still alive. I go flying down the stairs. I'm like, boys, come here. We go over to the refrigerator and I the doors open with great panache. And I say, boys, we're going vegan. And they're like, yeah, what is vegan? And that was it. That was it. That very moment we unloaded the refrigerator, I filled 4 grocery bags to the brim with this $50 salmon fillet that I had just gotten to barbecue, and my therapy cheese drawer. The don't touch this expensive cheeses that went in. Opened the freezer, looking at veggie patties and thinking they were going to be good. Nope, there's milk in there. There's cheese in there. It all goes in. And oh my gosh, the truth there, which I wish oh, and we threw it away. And no, we didn't. We drove the 1 mile to my 90-year-old parents. And I was like, here, guys, it's too late for you. 1, don't believe that. But 2, they would have disowned me as a child, being products of the Great Depression, if I had thrown away hundreds of dollars worth of perfectly good carcinogenic food. So it went to mom and dad, where I'm sure they happily consumed it. And for some reason, they're still in their 90s and alive. Okay, grateful for that. Okay, so that's processed meat, but this is a breast cancer talk. So does processed meat cause breast cancer? Sure enough, when the NIH AARP Diet and Health Study came out, we found that they followed 193,000+, robust study, postmenopausal women for 9.4 years, and they found a 25% increase in breast cancer for red and processed meat consumers. Okay, by the way, they also found an increase in colorectal, gastric, pancreatic, and prostate cancers. How would you like your steak? Raw, rare, medium rare, well done, or burnt to a crisp? Well, I'm going to just go with not raw, because that's going to cause life-threatening bloody diarrhea. What are you going to go with? Not very well done meat. So here's what happens when you consume grilled or burnt meat and its relationship to your breast cancer risk. Those who had the highest incidence of eating hamburgers had a 54% increase in breast cancer risk. Bacon, 64% increase. Beef steak, 121% increase. Hey, doc, I love me some meat. Give me all 3. Okay, all 3, a 362% increase in breast cancer. So this is the higher breast cancer risk, all of these percentages, relative to women who eat black bean burgers? No. Relative to women who choose rare or medium done meat. So all that risk is from the carcinogens of high heat cooking. We're comparing meat to meat, just the type of cooking, not even like the highest quantity of. It's just, so it's not from the IGF-1 in this story. It's that certain mutagens, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and hydrocyclic amines to be exact, are cancer-causing compounds that form on the surface of well-done and what some people would think were deliciously grilled, smoked, roasted, pan-fried, or barbecued meat. So these heterocyclic amines, they form on the surface rapidly at high temperature. However, even baking like chicken at lower temperatures, say for 15, or I think you cooked chicken for 30. It's been so long now since I cooked a chicken. So however many minutes, it leads to those same HCAs on the surface because of a chemical reaction between the heat and the creatinine in muscle tissue. Hear what I said? That reaction. So that's why it doesn't form, the carcinogens don't form on fried and grilled veggie burgers, on your charred broccoli, which is like so delicious. So they don't have any measurable HCAs. Okay, so this is Dr. Esselstyn. I call him Dr. Essie at his house, and this is his house. I popped in because, you know, Rip always puts on Instagram, if you know Rip Esselstyn, puts up like their fun family meals where they're like going down like this little train of delicious food and piling it on their plate. I'm like, I want to come and do that. So they let me. It was fabulous. And I just have a picture there to prove it. But my hero, Dr. Esselstyn, has something really incredible and powerful to say. If you do not see Forks Over Knives, this is, with their permission, a 60-second clip reproduced from there. To me, this is one of the most powerful 60 seconds a person could listen to. Watch it not play. Oh, there it goes.
In World War II, the Germans occupied Norway. Among the first things they did was confiscate all the livestock and farm animals to provide supplies for their own troops. So the Norwegians were forced to eat mainly plant-based foods.
Now we look at the deaths in Norway, just antecedent to this period, from heart attack and stroke. 1927, 1930, 35. Look right up here, right at the very top, 1939. Bingo! In come the Germans. Immediately, 1940, wow, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. Have we ever seen a population have their cardiovascular disease plummet like this from statins, from bypass surgery, or from stents? No. But look what immediately happened. With the cessation of hostilities in 1945, back comes the meat, back comes the dairy, back comes the strokes and heart attacks. I mean, it's such an absolute powerful lesson. But we didn't get it.
But we didn't get it. Oh, it's like a dagger through my heart. It really is. Every time I watch that. And then people watch that and they hear the facts that I just powered through. And then they say, you know, that really hit me. I get it now. But chicken's okay, right? All right, so chicken, IGF-1, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, heterocyclic amines, and FIP. So one culprit behind the cancer connection is FIP. It is actually an HCA, and it's found in cooked meats, and it possesses a power equivalent to pure estrogen to fuel both the initiation and the growth of breast cancers. FIP exists in the breast milk of meat eaters, but not in vegetarians. And within 24 hours of ending meat consumption, FIP in urine samples disappears. We have been given such a forgiving body. Here is an erudite statement that is 34 years old. In the absence of effective federal regulation, the meat industry uses hundreds of animal feed additives, including antibiotics, tranquilizers, pesticides, animal drugs, artificial flavors, industrial wastes, and in growth promoting hormones with little or no concern about the carcinogenic and other toxic effects. Nothing has changed decades later. In other words, black box, what are you eating? How can scientists study what we're eating if we don't even know what we're eating? Well, they can grind up chicken feathers and analyze them. So indeed they did. You should know that grains fortified with pesticides and antibiotics are totally legal. However, they're found in this particular study illegal antibiotics like fluoroquinolones. They found in their little lab analysis of chicken feathers arsenic, acetaminophen, Prozac, antifungals, antihistamines, a sex hormone, caffeine. Okay, first of all, look, if chickens have a headache, they feel depressed, if they're sleepy, if they're undersexed, I get it. But just tell us. And by the way, why are you grinding up these very same chicken feathers and then feeding them back to living chickens as feather meal? Blah. Next problem with chicken, poop and bugs. Most people don't realize that meat contaminated with viruses, parasites, and bacteria is entirely legal to sell in the United States. Oh yeah. Your meat is packaged with poop and all of the critters inside of poop. The only requirement the government has is that you cannot physically, with thy naked eye, see said fecal matter. Then that's not okay. All right. So anyway, a USDA training video shows how they do all this like rapid fire decapitation of chickens, and then they throw them in this cool bath because they need to soak the carcass in cold water before packaging it for consumers. So this chills them and it leaches more of the blood out, but all the water, sometimes they call it fecal soup because parts like intestines with poop end up floating around. And anyway, the point is, like, when you open a chicken package like this one and you see a little bit of fluid come out, it's not that your chicken is like super moist and juicy and that's chicken juice, that's fecal soup that got packaged in there, just so you know. The point is, when you test chicken, it has bacteria, that is not healthy for you. And it's your responsibility, apparently, to cook the meat well enough so that there are no such bacteria causing serious cramps and bloody diarrhea or paralysis like Guillain-Barré syndrome. However, you don't want to cook that meat too much because we already went through what happens when you have well done meat. But organic chicken is better, right? Well, this study testing 98 chicken breasts from 12 retail stores in the Netherlands, where they have much stricter criteria than we do, showed that 100% of the inorganic meat contained E. coli, whereas the organic version had 84% contamination. So, yeah, organic chicken is better. Arsenic. Chickens were purposely fed arsenic until after 72 years of doing so, the United States poultry industry was forced to stop using this additive in 2016. Arsenic. It's infamous for that, poison, that inheritance powder used in murder, but it also kills internal and external chicken parasites like tapeworm and lice and mites and so on. And it turns the meat a pretty pink color. Arsenic. Who cares? You care. This is a 2012 study, but it measured exposure to toxins in 207 preschoolers ages, it's cute little age, 2 to 4. And they found that 100% of the children exceeded the arsenic to cancer risk ratio by a factor of over 100. And their number one source of arsenic was poultry. However, even though arsenic has been eliminated from the feed, dumping 2 million pounds a year for 72 years into the environment has spiked our soil, sadly, so that even rice and plants can be arsenic laced. Chicken, I'm not done. All right, there's also saturated fat. So if you have a chicken breast, okay, so y'all know like the thigh, that's really bad, but the breast with the skin, 36% fat. No, I don't eat the skin. Okay, fine. One skinless, boneless chicken breast, 19% fat. So every time you're chewing, like, goosh, a fifth of that is pure bad fat. All right, but what about breast cancer, Kristi? Okay, let me tell you. This UK women's cohort study followed over 35,000 women for 8 years. In that time, 1,850 breast cancers developed. Ooh, look at this pretty one. It's a study comparing meat consumption to no meat consumption. I love this one. Okay, so compared to no meat eaters, those who ate red meat had a 41% increase in breast cancer. Those who ate processed meat, 39% increase in breast cancer over those who ate no meat. Chicken, there you are, 22%. Okay, so I get it, no chicken. But fish is okay, right? Oh, okay, yeah, sure. All right, so IGF-1, carcinogens, VIP2, dioxins, and PCBs. Who's that? All right, so PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, are a group of over 200 man-made chemicals that are they're liquid, I'm going to say oily, liquids and solids. They're clear, maybe a little yellow in color, but here's the thing, they have no smell and no taste. So they're super convenient to eat because you have no idea you're eating them. And they're resistant to extreme temperatures and pressures. So you can't cook them out. Dioxins, PCBs, they were used widely in like electrical equipment, capacitors, and as oil plasticizers, with over 1 billion pounds of PCBs manufactured in the US by Monsanto Inc. Monsanto? How do I know that name? Oh, I don't know, GMO seeds, Roundup, glyphosate, causes breast cancer. Okay, anyway, PCBs, the use of them ended in 1977 because of the health effects associated with exposure. The health effects. Do you need an example? Okay, so since dioxins are PCBs and they were the main ingredient in Agent Orange, I would say they have health effects. In case you don't remember, Agent Orange is an herbicide that the US military sprayed all over Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos during the Vietnam War to eliminate forest cover for enemy troops. Remember Smokey the Bear and only you can prevent forest fires? Apparently, American troops would joke about Agent Orange and they would say, only you can prevent a forest. because it was, you know, this herbicide, which may be clever, but it's really not funny because it didn't just kill trees. It caused a host of deadly or debilitating diseases in millions of people who were exposed, including 2.4 million American troops. So dioxins, fish. These PCBs, they're still around because they're super stable, which is great for a marriage, not really great for PCBs and you. They leak into the environment through spills and improper disposal, and we're mostly exposed to dioxins and PCBs by, you guessed it, eating contaminated fish, and also meat and dairy products. But fish is the biggest contributor. And they're stored in your fatty tissues and they hang out for a very long time. We're not so sure what, to be honest, but they've been classified by our friends at the IARC as group 2, probably carcinogenic to humans. Okay, so if people choose to get their recommended long-chain omega-3 intake from fish, the majority of consumers would exceed the safety limits for dioxins and dioxin-like substances. This statement is in Food and Chemical Toxicology way back in 2007. So yeah, you probably want to get your omega-3s from an algae-based source, probably. Here's back to me in the mercury. So fish that eat other fish and who live longer have higher levels of methylmercury because they have more years to absorb it from the water. So consuming those fish excessively, which is defined as what's excessive fish consumption, 3 to 4 servings per month. So anything more than 1 a week is excessive, and it elevates mercury levels and causes about a 5% drop in cognitive function, which I find like just a little bit ironic in that you were probably eating the fish in the first place because you heard fish promotes brain health. Microplastics, small little plastic pieces that are less than 5 millimeters long, and they harm aquatic life. But here's the thing. They also get into you, and they cause hormone disruption and cancer risk and DNA damage. And what about fiber? First of all, there isn't a single pure animal product on the planet that has a single shred of fiber. So here's your Atlantic salmon, Zippo for fiber. 97% of Americans get more than the recommended amount of protein every day, 40 grams in this thing. But 97% of Americans do not get the wimpy recommendation of 30 grams of fiber a day. And yet all I ever hear people obsess about is protein. So you're getting enough, even without the fish. Saturated fat and cholesterol. Okay, imagine that you're farm raised and kept in a pen and you're fed grain and you're unable to swim. You just like basically wiggle a little bit in place every day. Then you, just like the fish in this picture, would be fat. Because they are just basically sitting there doing nothing for their entire lives, and they're fed all these antibiotics to reduce disease in their diet to look like fish, naturally living in the wild. You probably think that this is a healthy piece of fish. Oh, by the way, this is a 2014 photo of a fish farm in, of all places, Vietnam. Remember? Agent Orange, dioxin. Guess where did Vietnam export fish to in 2017 the most? United States of America. Yep, they export more fish to us than any other country. I don't know if that's payback or what, but fish have a ton of saturated fat and cholesterol. This is a half fillet of farm salmon. It has 6 grams of fat. No, it doesn't. It has 27 grams of fat, but it's 6 grams of saturated and a bunch of cholesterol. Okay, so basically that's 59% of every bite is fat. Okay, gross. But wild caught fish is okay, right? I don't know, let's see. Here we've got our farm salmon, and here's the wild salmon. So it's certainly a better choice. It has fewer calories. It has the same amount of protein. It has half the fat. It has fewer grams of saturated, but actually it has fewer of the healthy omega-3 fatty acids, but overall a lot less fat. So, oh my gosh, did you just in your head go like, okay, so she said I can have wild salmon. Of course you can. I'm not your mother. You can have wild salmon. But in that instant, that just little moment. Did you forget about the list? The fish list. Okay, so not good for you. But dairy's okay, right? What about the incredible edible egg? Kristi, don't sing. Okay, the Adventist Health Study 2. I'm going to quickly go through because I want to answer that question without jumping into all the nitty-gritty details of dairy and eggs, which I can and do in my summit, which is super fun, by the way. Okay, this study, 69,000 people followed for 4 years. Eating was categorized as meat versus vegetarian, about evenly split. In that period of 4 years, almost 3,000 cancer cases developed, 5% in men, 3.8% in women. Relative to the meat-eating group, vegetarians had 24% less cancer. But here's the interesting part. I love this one. Why? Because we have a vegan group again. Okay, so eating meat was categorized as, eating was meat, vegan, so no meat, dairy, or eggs, pescatarian, so you have fish, lacto-ovo, milk and eggs, vegetarian, or semi-vegetarian. Sometimes I have meat, mostly I don't. All right, so of these, there were 4,922 vegans and 7,000 in the fish group and 20,000 in the lacto-ovo. Okay, keep your eyes on here, right? Lacto-ovo, because that's what we're talking about, milk and eggs, and 4,000 in the semi. Vegans were the only subgroup to show a statistically significant 34% drop in breast and gynecologic cancers relative to the meat eaters. So my point is, in addition, the addition of fish or of milk and eggs, or an occasional drumstick, added to the diet seems to have negated the anti-cancer properties of the otherwise vegan food on their plates. I'm going to give you a really tidy, milky meaty checklist to think about. This is what I mentally do when my patients and friends and family, I'm like, dinner conversationalist. I go to parties and then I get cornered into talking about this stuff. So in my head, I have these 5 points because people are constantly saying like, but fish, right? Like, but is okay. But insert conversation subject is okay, right? Not subject, what part of the meat they are inserting. I hope this helps you out. So, number 1, you want to think, what about the cellular response to animal protein and saturated fat? Okay, every time you chew and swallow down food, there is an automatic response that happens that is a cascade of events that sets the stage. You elevate estrogen, you elevate IGF-1, you elevate angiogenesis, angio blood vessels, genesis birth, the birth of new blood flow. Every cancer in your body, breast and otherwise, if it aspires to be bigger than the tip of a ballpoint pen, must create its own blood supply to bring the nutrients it needs to survive and thrive, and then exit strategy through those same blood vessels to your brain, to your liver, to your lung. Angiogenesis must be thwarted if you want to kick cancer, all right? So we've got elevated estrogen, we have IGF-1, we have angiogenesis, we have immune system disruption, DNA damage, and inflammation is at the root of it all. And all of that happens no matter how happy that cow was, no matter how much little fresh grass it had and how many acres it had to itself before it was decapitated and eventually ended up on your plate. Okay, so treating the animal humanely and with kindness and good food doesn't do anything to stop the automatic cellular response to animal protein and fat. 2, the carcinogens from cooking. We went through these, right? The HCAs, the PAHs. So unless you're going to eat chicken tartare and brave the life-threatening bacteria, you're going to have heterocyclic amines in the chard. You're going to have nitrosamines and FIP and TMAO, by the way. I don't have time for it. That's your answer to what about egg whites? TMAO, that's your answer. It's bad. Point 3, what's naturally in the meat and milk? Okay, we didn't put anything weird in there. It's just naturally packed with saturated fat, trans fat, cholesterol, heme, iron, and nitroso compounds. Bad, 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 bad. What's unnaturally, now here we come, humans. What's unnaturally in the meat and milk? Well, a lot of contaminants and additives, okay? Especially zeranol, which is the most potent growth, human created, most potent growth hormone on the planet. And it is shoved into all conventionally raised cattle, which is 94% of all beef. And why, pray tell, do they do such a thing? Well, to make the little heifers grow big and fat in time for slaughter. They only have like 18 months. So Zeranol literally boasts 100,000 times the estrogen influence of the BPA in plastic as an estrogen mimicker. Zeranol, 100,000 times the BPA in plastic. So next time you hear someone eating an In-N-Out burger, be like, I'm not drinking out of that plastic water bottle. Okay, 100,000 times. Okay, they just don't know. But there's other hormones, including estradiol, progesterone, testosterone. They're all breast cancer makers and routinely used in animal agriculture. The meat you eat is totally pumped with antibiotics and tranquilizers, and even, as you saw, antidepressants and caffeine, and their GMO feed, you know, unless organic, it has pesticides and herbicides, including glyphosate, which causes breast cancer cells to grow in petri dishes. And even our wild caught fish have dioxins and PCBs and microplastics. So that's number 4. And finally, what's not in the meat and milk? What's not there? Vitamin C, A, D, E, and K, minerals, calcium, potassium, boron, manganese, magnesium, antioxidants, remember 64 times. Anyway, more. So, and my favorite, fiber. All right. So we all know what the next question will be once you get through your list. And that is, where do I get my protein? Well, you need maybe around 0.8 grams per kilogram. So for a 140-pound woman, about 50 grams of protein a day, maybe 60 to 70 over age 70, over age 65. Anyway, whatever you do, don't bother counting your grams. No one in the US has kwashiorkor, which is a protein deficiency. And here are some top awesome, delicious sources of protein. For example, seitan, not good for my celiacs out there, but that is less than 2% of people. So seitan is vital wheat gluten, 21 grams of protein in a third of a cup. Like, amazing. I'm obsessed with making it. Anyway, I can get into my cooking thing. I have a cooking class once a month on Zoom, YouTube, Instagram. In the class, I'm about to, actually coming up, I'm going to make turkey loaf. It's so good. It's so quick, 10 minutes. Then you got to steam it for an hour, but it takes 10 minutes. So delish. Okay, seitan, soy, what? I'll get to that in a second. Half cup, 20 grams, not milk, that's 8 grams. Lentils, 1 cup cooked, 18 grams. Beans, bean me up, 1 cup, 15 grams, on and on. Okay. Don't worry about protein. Now we're going to get on to some really fun food facts. So as if it's not enough that I just vilify animal products, we actually get to glorify the very food that you will now choose to consume instead of milk, meat, and eggs. They're not neutral replacements. And that's what's so incredible. When I dove into all that science to write the book, as I was saying, I was just not only blown away by how detrimental eating animal products were, but the absolute power in our plant kingdom to stave off all of those things, to lower estrogen, lower IGF-1, stop angiogenesis, decrease inflammation, stop DNA mutations, endow your body with just all of the baseline function it needs to function well and for a very long time, right? Health span over lifespan, but both is our goal. So anyway, the point is, we're not going from harmful to, it's pretty okay. It's outrageously helpful when you get rid of the animals and add in all the plants. Cancer kicking food, remember? It's going to get in your blood and transform everything. So we don't have time to detail out my top 18 breast superfoods, but I want you to know what they are. I'm going to give you a couple of ingredients here that are, we do a little detail, and then I'll show you the list. So the first, because it gets such a bad rap, we need to debunk soy. Someone somewhere out there told you to avoid soy because it's a plant estrogen, and 80% of breast cancers are fueled by estrogen, remember? So women should spit miso right out of their mouths, right? Well, if that's true, then women who consume soy should have more breast cancer, right? Right, they should, but they don't, because, well, Okay, so because we have two estrogen receptors in our body, alpha and beta. Alpha is attached to cancer. So when estrogen, say from your ovary or from your fat aromatase conversion, hits this receptor alpha, it's going to send the cancer cell that signal, divide, divide. However, with 1600% more affinity, like genistein and daidzein, the phytoestrogens, isoflavones in soy, hit the beta receptor. And what they do there is oh so fascinating. Number one, they shut alpha down. It almost acts like tamoxifen, like it's not there anymore. Number two, it goes out into that fat and where the enzyme is aromatase and shuts it down. So you're not converting into more estrogen. And number three, even if it should wander over into the alpha receptor, it has like 1/100th of the signaling capacity of actual estrogen. So it just sits there and blocks it. That's where it acts really like tamoxifen. Okay, back to the studies. I'm just going to go to the facts. So when you have the highest versus lowest consumers of soy in studies, we do in fact see less breast cancer, a ton less. Less than 59% premenopausal breast cancer in this study, 58% adult onset breast cancer, with a wimpy 1.4, oh my gosh, 1.5 soy servings a week. I don't know why that was a tongue twister for me. That was funny. That is like nothing. I want you ladies to have 2 to 3 servings a day. Tempeh, miso, natto, tamari, those are your fermented soys, but minimally processed tofu, soy milk, it's all great. Edamame, soybeans, all great except soy protein isolate. Even that's probably not bad for you as a thing, but it's lost all of its isoflavone power. It's gone. You literally have 0.2 milligrams per gram of protein in soy protein isolate, as opposed to 25 milligrams in a cup of tofu or soy milk. So we went from 25 milligrams to creating this isolate 0.2 milligrams. So it's lost all of its power. Korean BRCA mutation carriers love this. These BRCA gene mutations, of course, thought to be just inescapable in terms of they're broken. So how do you fix broken BRCA genes? Even in them, there was a 43% drop in occurrence of first-time breast cancer, which is critical to note because 75% of the breast cancers in BRCA1 carriers are estrogen negative. In other words, soy has some sort of magical anti-carcinogenic, anti-proliferative powers that are largely poorly understood, but it goes way beyond the estrogen connection. Here's a beautiful study because it's from 2020. It's really robust, over 52,000 women, going almost 8 years, and it's multi-ethnic with a third almost of participants being our African Americans, who are underrepresented in most studies. In that period of time, over 1,000 new breast cancers developed, and what they found was a 32% reduction in breast cancer for median intakes of soy milk versus dairy milk. Love that, because most of our studies are the highest versus lowest, tertile, quartile, quintile, like, sometimes it's a little far-fetched. Like right here, when you compare the 90th percentile, so people who are really drinking gallons of milk, maybe not gallons, to the 10th percentile, right? So the highest versus the lowest. Yes, but they're all milk drinkers. There is a 50% increase in breast cancer for those really going to cow down. Okay. What if you already have breast cancer? Should you now stop soy? No. I'm going to go a little bit faster because I want to try to leave some Q&A time. So guys, sorry, you thought I was talking fast before. Wait. Okay, so if you already have breast cancer and you consume soy, 60% drop in recurrence. This study, 6,200 multi-ethnic survivors, 51% mortality drop for estrogen negative, 32% mortality drop estrogen positive, not on tamoxifen. Interesting. All attributable then to the soy, and decreased all-cause mortality. Another study, 5,000, 32% less recurrence, 29% less death. Another study, 9,500 people with breast cancer, 25% less recurrence. And no, the soy does not, according to 417 human studies, have any problem interfering with thyroid function, estrogen levels, ovulation in women, semen levels in men, no negative effects in children. That's alluding to gynecomastia. Okay, soy, superfood. Superfood number 2. cruciferous vegetables, and leafy greens. We're talking broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, arugula, bok choy, etc. Sulforaphane is the magical ingredient, the magical phytonutrient seen in our cruciferous kingdom, and it has ridiculous talent when it comes to seeking out and destroying breast cancer cells. One study followed nearly 52,000 African-American women for 12 years, lots of people, lots of time, and those who just consumed a single serving of cruciferous veggies a day cut breast cancer by 41%. And broccoli sprouts contain 100 times the sulforaphane content of broccoli. In fact, there are strong animal model evidence that sulforaphane has the power to literally destroy, stick with me here, breast cancer stem cells, both estrogen positive and estrogen negative. Think about that. The qualities of stem cells, migration, colonization, proliferation, self-renewal, they're basically immortal, right? And when they're hijacked by cancer, well, you can see it's the cancer stem cell that's theorized to be responsible for all recurrence and death. And it lies in wait because it doesn't divide quickly. And a lot of our really toxic weapons like chemo, they're all about what divides fast around here. That's why hair, bald, GI tract, nausea, vomiting. Anyway, cancer that divides fast gets killed, but the stem cells are slow. They're patient, but they are no match for sulforaphane. There was a study. Now I'm against animal studies, like very much against, join PCRM, sign all the petitions, like hate it. However, this study was already done. I'm just going to tell you, and we're going to learn the lesson from it. So we've got mice, they're grafted with estrogen positive and negative stem cell breast cancers, and they're injected with sulforaphane. And over a 3-week period, you see these supposedly immortal stem cells go from present to smaller, to smaller, to smaller, to gone. How many barrels of broccoli do I have to eat to make that happen? 1.25 cups of broccoli sprouts will contain that amount of sulforaphane. Wow. Superfood 3, flax seeds, lignans, okay? These are yet another phytoestrogen, and they are extremely protective against getting breast cancer and getting recurrence because they lower estrogen, they slow abnormal cell growth, and they increase endostatin in your bloodstream. And endostatin inhibits tumor angiogenesis, the blood vessel thing that we just talked about. Here's a study showing that high versus low quartile, there's what I was talking about, of lignin intake had a 71% decrease in breast cancer specific mortality. One of my favorite studies took a muffin and stuffed it with 2 tablespoons of ground flax seeds, okay? And they had 32 breast cancer patients. Everybody has breast cancer. They have a core biopsy proving it. Everybody gets a muffin a day for 5 weeks. Half of them don't have the flax, half of them do, every day for 5 weeks. And now we can do the definitive surgery, lumpectomy, mastectomy, and reanalyze these 3 properties that were analyzed on the core biopsy without changing anything else about their lives or diets. It's just basically 2 tablespoons of ground flax in a 5-week period. And what did it do to cell division rates, to CERB2 expression, which is an aggressive marker, and to apoptosis, the cancer cell suicide? The division rates slowed by 34%. The bad actor marker went down by 71%, and cancer cell suicide went up about 31%. 2 tablespoons of flax. Superfood 4, berries. 9,000 breast cancer patients, everyone who had just 2 servings a week of blueberries had a 25% drop in mortality for every 2 servings per week of blueberries. Oh my gosh, I have a funny story about blueberries and my kids, but there's no time. Okay. The magic in blueberries is urolithins. They mediate all of these anti-cancer activities, such as cell cycle arrest, aromatase, now you know what that is, inhibition, induction of apoptosis, tumor suppression. 5th and final thing we're going to just mention, because it's so powerful, is green tea. They inhibit, meaning the molecules of AGCG, inhibit free radicals, stop tumor production, invasion, and metastases. Does it really stack up in humans? Yes. 1,160 women sipping on tea. They all had breast cancer of various stages. Those who had 3 cups of green tea a day in stage 1 cancer had 57% less recurrence, stage 2, 31% recurrence, drop in recurrence, I mean. And you know what EGCG has been shown in Petri dish studies to kill? Breast cancer stem cells. Back to the sinister masterminds. And a way to thwart them. Always add a squeeze of lemon to your tea because citrus quintuples the antioxidant absorption of said green tea. I have this antioxidant smoothie. It's become somewhat viral, and for I think good reason, because I've really worked hard to study what foods have a direct impact on all the little pathways and requirements that cancer, breast cancer specifically, takes to exist and thrive and survive and metastasize. So it all goes in the smoothie, except for these 5, which you could put in there, but it might be disgusting. So here are my top 18 anti-breast cancer foods. We've got soy, cruciferous vegetables, berries, dietary fiber, flax seeds, turmeric, aloe vera. We have a product called Aloe Tonic, which is the whole leaf and highly effective. Green tea. We also produce our own in Japan, a very organic, high quality version called Ancient Matcha. Amla, which is the Indian gooseberry, comes in a powdered form. Citrus, cacao, apple, and red grapes, not in the smoothie recipe, but would go deliciously into it. Maybe not so much tomatoes, mushrooms, garlic, seaweed, and whole grains, but this would make a delish avo toast, maybe a very lovely whole grain pasta with sauce. Yeah, you can get all of this in you in 2 simple meals, 1 smoothie and 1 little meal. Okay, so that's food, people. Diet, nutrition. If you think about risk factors for cancer as boulders landing on your scale, tipping you toward cancer, getting rid of them would push you away from cancer, versus pebbles. This is how I view the science as contributing in terms of what we know today. So boulders really affecting your risks for breast cancer are diet, nutrition, alcohol, exercise, and obesity. Like irrefutable evidence, these boulders are never going to be downgraded to pebbles. I mean, they can in your personal life and in your body, but as a risk factor, Pebbles, however, environmental toxicities, hormone replacement therapy, emotional stress, sleep, and fasting. So these are pebbles. They absolutely can tip a scale. But if you already have a boulder, what I'm saying is the boulder like kind of overrules whatever cleanup here you do, the scale's tipped because you got a boulder. That's where I'm going with that analogy. So let me just go through the 3 other boulders quickly and conclude. All right, so alcohol. I am so sorry. I'm a total buzzkill. I wish I didn't have to be. I do because the facts are making me. Sorry. Okay. Alcohol, it increases estrogen levels, bad actor, forms acetaldehyde, super carcinogenic, impairs immune function, inactivates folic acid and folate, and thus interferes with DNA repair. All right, well, what is a drink? 5 ounces of wine equals 12 ounces of beer equals 1.5 ounces of hard liquor. All right, so this is all 14 grams of alcohol. We in the US supersize stuff a bit. It's less in Europe. However, pick your poison in your mind, and here we go. A half a drink a day, which I'm not even sure why, but it would lead to a 5% increase in breast cancer. 1 drink a day, 10% increase over the teetotaler, over someone who does not drink. 2 drinks a day, 30% increase. 3 drinks a day, 40% increase. And this increase in risk was seen across cancers, positive and negative, more in positive than negative, but in breast cancers alike. The elevation spanned all types of alcohol, and there was 1 and maybe only 1 outlier, and I emphasize maybe because you certainly don't need to drink red wine to get the exact same benefits with none of the bad side effects by having red grapes, the skin of red grapes. But red wine does seem to have some redemptive qualities as it relates to AI, which stands for aromatase inhibitors, not artificial intelligence. So AI, aromatase inhibition, means that you're going to have less conversion into estrogen out in your fat cells. So red wine seems to, through this mechanism, be able to modulate estrogen signaling, cancer cell differentiation. It can cause cell growth inhibition. it can cause metastasis inhibition, and it can induce apoptosis. All right. But again, you get all this naturally occurring goodness from the skin of red grapes, grape juice, although I'm not a juice fan because of calories and insulin elevation, but they, not calories, sugar calories and insulin elevation, grapeseed extract. But yeah, it's in red wine. It is not in white wine. What about methylfolate? Some of you may have heard about methylfolate. So basically, when you consume folate via food or folic acid in your vitamins, it goes through this process mediated by MTHFR, sounds like a bad word, expletive. No, it's methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. That enzyme converts these folate sources to methylfolate in activated form. That is, think of it as a DNA babysitter. So this methylfolate just sits there, and when your DNA divides, if it makes a critical error, it swoops in and fixes it or throws it out and makes everybody like copacetic and happy. And 30 to 50% of people naturally have an MTHFR polymorphism that can cause it to work at lower efficiency. So they're not making high levels of this. So one workaround would it be maybe to front load how much folic acid and folate you're taking so that a slow conversion isn't causing too little DNA babysitter matter, right? And this study, Nurses Health Study, huge one, showed that among all those who drank one or more alcoholic drinks a day, having 600 micrograms per day or more of folate led to, so that's from food sources, not supplements there, led to 89% less breast cancer. So everybody, this is just the drinkers, and amongst drinkers, those who got enough folate, therefore made enough DNA babysitter methylfolate, had 89% less breast cancer. Pink Lotus Elements is a leading online women's health and breast cancer store. And in there we have Cosmo Companion. I have like mixed feelings about this. I love this because it's like ingeniously formulated by my nutraceutical guru and partly myself. It's called Cosmo Companion. It gives you that very bioavailable methylfolate that you need with a number of botanicals that support and protect your liver as it detoxes alcohol. It enhances glucose metabolism. However, that is just addressing, in part, a pathway that can lead to carcinogenesis. My friends, I'm sad because I love a glass of wine or two, although I'm not drinking alcohol anymore now. I have to tell you, it's the reason why I at least I'm taking a 1-year break. I'm giving my whole body a 1-year super clean break, probably longer than that. But the point is, it's so much more than carcinogenic. It literally just a drink a week will decrease cortical thickness. So I care about this thing in my noggin. So that's a problem. It's a problem that it increases cortisol levels. So if you are a drinker like I was, like, you know, just some nights of the week you come home and you just need that little edge off and pour a glass of wine with dinner, you know, with your significant other, whatever. So it's like socialization and, you know, damn Butin or Blue Zone drinking. You do it because maybe you're a little bit stressed out, like just had a lot going on today and want that edge cut off. And ironically, the cortisol production increases in response to that drink, even throughout the entire next day. So when you get home tomorrow, you're like, why am I more stressed out? Give me 2 glasses. No, I'm kidding. Not kidding. So we've got the basic brain shrinkage. You've got increases in cortisol, making you more stressed out and feeling anxious enough to need something to take the edge off. And if that all isn't bad enough, including the cancer causation, it messes with your microbiome. Like it specifically targets the healthy good bacteria, releasing all of that butyrate and beautiful things that your microbiome does to decrease inflammation and depression and anxiety and all the amazing things that we're just uncovering. Oh my goodness, it zeroes in on the good ones and leaves us with the bad ones. And so alcohol is just bad. Obesity. Who's too chubby? Are you one of the 72.2% of American adults who is overweight or obese? I don't know. If you don't know, check your BMI. We've got a calculator here, handy dandy. You just plug in your weight and your height, and normal is 18.5 to 24.9. That's ideal body mass index. You're overweight if you're 25 to 29.9, obese if you're over 30, and morbidly obese if you're over, did I say that wrong? Obese if you're over 30 and morbidly obese if you're over 40. Who cares? Well, this isn't anything about body shaming, okay? This is about optimizing health and minimizing cancer risk. And it turns out that fat, adipose, has a host of properties that elevate your risk of getting cancer, of having it recur, and of dying from it in an undeniable way. So we've talked about how 80% of breast cancers are fueled by estrogen. High estrogen levels after menopause increase breast cancer risk. Remember, fat converts the steroids to estrogen, thanks aromatase. So the big question is, do obese women have increased estrogen levels that increase their risk of breast cancer? To study that, you have to look at women and weight who are not taking hormone replacement therapy, who went through menopause. And the spoiler alert here is that the more weight you gain, the more risk you have. The more weight gained since age 18, the more postmenopausal breast cancer risk you have. Fat tends to be breast cancer protective before menopause. Poorly understood reasons why. But you're unlikely to be obese until menopause. And then, as we all know, metabolism slows down. It just becomes really sticky trying to lose an obese amount of weight to normal body weight after menopause. So best to just try to target ideal body weight and maintain it your whole life. If you gain 8 to 14 pounds after high school, 25% increase in breast cancer risk. 14 to 29 pounds increase, 60% increase in risk. And you basically double your risk of getting breast cancer if you have gained more than 29 pounds since high school. As I was saying, there's no controversy in the literature, 50 to 250% more breast cancer, recurrence, and death in obese versus non-obese women. And it has a lot more to do with in inflammation than it does with actual estrogen production, it turns out. And this is just getting uncovered in the literature. 2020, 22, 2019, recent studies showing that, yeah, you've got the estrogen production via aromatase, that's definitely bad, but leptin and leptin receptor expression, it's so interesting. Leptin is produced and secreted almost entirely into the circulation by adipose tissue. So once leptin binds to its receptor, it crosstalks with multiple oncogenes, which then ignite a series of like, turn this on, turn that off. And all of the ons and offs that it does are always the signaling pathways that are pro-inflammatory, releasing cytokines and growth factors. And the end game is breast cancer, initiation, progression, and metastases. The third thing fat does is it generates chronic inflammation. So this adipose-derived activated macrophages produce, again, pro-inflammatory mediators, interleukin 6 and 1 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. And so chronic inflammation is promoting this cancer growth and metastatic spread. And angiogenesis, it also allows for the blood flow. But here's the thing, it modifies the immune responses and it interferes. Get this, this is kind of new, interesting. This is the 22 study that I read. It interferes with hormonal and chemotherapeutic treatments. And maybe that in part is why we have elevated mortality in overweight and obese breast cancer patients, because the therapies we employ to help stave off said recurrence and death are less effective because of this adipose chronic inflammation. And finally, insulin and IGF-1 signaling. BMI correlates directly with circulating insulin. Insulin activates aromatase, there she is again, and it directly stimulates the growth and invasion of breast cancer cells. It also decreases IGF-1 binding protein, so now you have more IGF-1. It stops apoptosis. Hey, cancer, don't die, hang out, we like you. No, we don't, but that's what insulin is saying. And it elevates VEGF, so angiogenesis occurs. Here's the good news. You lose the weight, you lose the risk. 64% decrease in breast cancer for premenopausal weight loss, 52% for postmenopausal weight loss, 34% for just hanging tight with the same weight before and after menopause. Gaining more than 5% of your initial weight during or after treatment, irrespective of baseline BMI, increases the risk of recurrence and reduces survival 5-fold. That's 400%. Final thing to look at is exercise. So 25% of breast cancer cases worldwide are due to deadly combinations of obesity and a sedentary lifestyle. Exercise decreases estrogen, it enhances fat metabolism, it lessens inflammatory markers, it strengthens your immune system. So based on the evidence, Exercise really contributes to reducing that milieu that leads to breast cancer formation. If you already have breast cancer, exercise has been statistically shown to have positive effects on cardiorespiratory fitness, cancer-related pain, mental well-being, depression, quality of life, sleep, fatigue reduction, and breast cancer-related lymphedema. But how much exercise? How much do I have to do to get all the benefits? Well, here's a study. I love this one because it's really setting the bar super low for you. It looked at over 17,000 women, and all they had to do was walk 11 minutes a day, briskly walk 11 minutes a day to drop their breast cancer risk by 18%. But if you put more pep in your step, women who exercise 3 to 4 hours a week at moderate to vigorous levels in the science will have a 30 to 40% lower incidence of breast cancer than sedentary women. Is more better? Yes, it is. 57% lower incidence for 4 or more hours a week, because we've seen for many years now, we've known that there's an exercise dose response curve. Exercise and the benefits to health are at their highest impact when you just go from the couch to moving. And it really goes in this exponential pattern to 150 minutes a week. Between 150 and 30 minutes a week, this is pretty, steep enough to make me want to push 5 hours a week of exercise. But once you hit 5 hours, you can see it's not a flat line, and it certainly doesn't go down. In other words, there is no end in sight to the benefits you receive from increasing exercise in a weekly level, but the gains are so small that you could actually compute it out and find, depending on how much you exercise beyond those 5 hours, that you gain, let's just say you exercise an equivalent of, in the end of your life, this extra bit of exercise beyond the 5 hours equaled 8 months of exercising. You gained 8 months of life. Like, you might just equal out, and all the extra life you got was you actually exercising, which wouldn't be a bad thing either. But my point is, you got to hit 150 minutes, work up to it if you need to, if you can't tolerate that. And 300 is the real gold standard. And more is all like just sugar on top. Okay, so I love this study. 1,340 breast cancer high risk, because they were all stages 1 through 3, and they all got chemo. Okay, and their activity was categorized as inactive, low active, less than 150 minutes a week, moderately active, hitting my 150 to 300, but highly active people, greater than 300, does more equal better? Let's find out. So they were all followed for 2 years, and they found a 55% drop in recurrence and a 68% drop in mortality for all of the exercisers versus inactive. So it didn't matter if you were low, moderate, or high. You, as a group, the active people versus inactive, had this drop. All right, but let's get smarter than that. A 2-year follow-up. If you didn't exercise before diagnosis and you didn't exercise at the 2-year follow-up, you are a reference null person, all right? If you didn't exercise before, but hey, you picked it up, good for you. You're exercising now at 2 years follow-up. You have a 46% drop in breast cancer recurrence relative to the person who's just still sitting on that couch. If you did exercise before, but for unknown reasons or known reasons, maybe in the study, you don't exercise anymore, you still have a 6% benefit over recurrence over the person who never exercised. So good for the before diagnosis days. However, if you're like the super achiever, you exercise before and you exercise now, you have a 55% drop in recurrence. This is even more interesting to me. This is mortality at 2 years. So the person who's sat on the couch forever is our reference person. You didn't exercise before, but you pick it up. You now have a 43% drop in all-cause mortality. You exercised before, but then you stopped. You still have a 9% drop relative to this person. If you exercised before and you exercise now, winner, winner, you get not a chicken dinner, definitely not. Maybe my seitan dinner. 68% drop in all-cause mortality. At 2-year follow-up, we can substratify our minutes now. So the people who did less than 150 minutes had a 59% drop in all-cause mortality, which is statistically identical to the moderate group. Okay, so somewhere between just walking around and 300 minutes of walking around gives you a huge drop. If you're an overachiever, you're rewarded with a 69% drop. Why? Because exercise improves body composition, decreases those sex hormones, including estrogen, improves insulin sensitivity, decreases inflammation, improves the adipokine milieu, decreases the inflammation, right, in all of the secretions, improves immune surveillance, and improves DNA repair. Brand new study in 2023 showed that if you exercise during chemo, neoadjuvant chemo, so your cancer is still in your body and now you manage to exercise and eat healthy, hence the apple. It's called PCR, a pathologic complete response. It's the highly coveted, what happened? The cancer is gone. Like that chemo really worked. If you exercised and ate healthy, you had a 53% PCR, cancer gonzo, because of the chemo and your activities. Because if you just did the chemo, but didn't have a daily exercise regimen, nor did you eat healthy, 28% had a PCR. So PCR went from 28 to 53% because of exercise and healthy eating. In conclusion, my Beat It Breast Cancer checklist: eat a whole food plant-based diet, keep your BMI under 25, try to get up to 5 hours a week of moderate effort exercise. If you're super sweaty, vigorous, the definition is I can't talk. I'm not going to pass out, can't talk, but I can't talk right now. I'm working so hard. You can cut it in half to 2.5 hours a week and reach that near plateau point. Minimize or really eliminate alcohol. If you're going to drink, maybe just 5 ounces of red wine, and don't smoke. Manage your stress, have quality social connections in your life, screen through exams and imaging, give back, smile, love. I encourage all of you to visit pinklotus.com. There's a wealth of info on our website, entirely free. The Breast Center, you can access me. I do a lot of Zoom consultations. You can come see me at our physical brick and mortar in Santa Monica. The Elements store is online. I mentioned it with Cosmo Companion, but it really has a number of intelligently, uniquely formulated supplements and other products that are always non-estrogenic, always vegan, and really address the needs of women before, during, or after a cancer diagnosis. A lot of menopause-related products in there that are safe and non-estrogenic. But my favorite part of the entire platform is Power Up. This is our social community. Its whole purpose, written here: empowerment through community, events, podcasts, blogs, crowdfunding, and more. It's been shown that people who have breast cancer who report low levels of support have 58% more mortality than those reporting high levels of support. So along with support is our Breast Buddies program, entirely free. Newly diagnosed women are paired with those who have been there, done that, specifically age for age, stage for stage, treatment for treatment, as a source of friendship and support. My nutritionist, holistic BFF, Kristi Roth, and I have a monthly cooking show. Please join us. It's called Cook Live with Kristi and Dr. Kristi. I'm really excited to let you know that my summit is coming across the country this calendar year. Check pinklotus.com/summit for dates and locations, and sign up. It's a 3-day event where we, it's like, we have breakout sessions but it's really, I just talk so fast and I have so much more to say. It takes like apparently 14 hours of me talking nonstop this fast to say everything I need to. So I have a 3-day summit so I can talk slower and still get through most of it. I do have a book, Breast the Owner's Manual, and I think you would find it very informative, and it doesn't talk as fast as I do. I wish you all the very best of health. Thank you for spending time with me today.
Great. Thank you so much, Doctor, for that extremely informative presentation. You're very animated. You're very passionate about the subject, clearly. So we have about 5 minutes left. So we're going to begin the Q&A session. And you basically told us how to get in touch with you. Was there anything else you wanted to share about how the listeners can get in touch with you, or you pretty much covered it all?
Yeah, go to the website, pinklotus.com, and you can contact us via the website. The phone number is there, and you can Instagram me at Dr. Kristi Funk, Dr. Kristi Funk.
All right, great. And your book is available. Actually, John, if you could put that back on. Your book is available on our website, therealtruthabout.health.com, under the bookstore. So you can find that there, as well as I'm sure other platforms as well. And let me just hop in because we just have like a couple of minutes here. So I don't think you touched too much on this or if at all about mammograms and stuff like that. So what's your thoughts on mammograms? There, just a couple of things. There's Dr. Jen Simmons, who critiques mammograms for their discomfort and the risks of inaccuracies which lead to unnecessary procedures. Michael Greger also talks about that as well. Michael Greger talks about, he has a whole video series on breast cancer and mammograms, and he talks about how oftentimes it brings people in with these early diagnoses, and he says that oftentimes it's diagnosing potential cancers that they would die with, not of, and then it leads to a whole bunch of invasive procedures. So what are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree with and echo the sentiments of both Doctors Greger and Simmons on the subject of mammography in terms of what they're talking about. It is for sure, it runs the gamut. The mammogram experience itself can be quite uncomfortable with all the squashing. It does impart radiation to your tissues. It's the amount of radiation that you receive as a human being walking on planet Earth for 7 weeks of time. So it's if you look at it in studies and you take women, for every 10,000 women getting annual mammograms every year from ages 40 to 74, for every 10,000 women getting those annual mammograms, 8.6 women out of 10,000 will get a breast cancer that is induced by the radiation from the mammograms. In that same period of time, 860 cancers will have been diagnosed. In other words, we cause with mammography, or we detect 100 times the cancers that we cause. But yes, cancer is caused by mammograms. And not only does it cause cancer, but now we're getting into what you were referring to, Michael, which we call the overdiagnosis and overtreatment of like biologically non-aggressive cancers. I mean, yeah, they might kill you when you're 212. Okay, so you, as you said, die with it and not from it. And so therefore, I'm not sure the answer to everything is no mammograms. Right now, this is still our gold standard of care for screening because it's cheap, it's widely available, it's always covered by insurance. Radiologists are, well adept at reading them. I love ultrasound as a modality for screening. I think it is effective in really experienced ultrasonographers' hands. I do my own ultrasounds, for example. MRI has a place, but things have drawbacks. You never want to miss biologically aggressive cancer that may be small, right? And that's what mammogram can pick up. Mammogram can pick up in situ cancer, which again, this is stage 0. So we're back to talking about the overdiagnosis and treatment. Like, is this stage 0 cancer ever going to become a real threat? So I think the real answer to me lies in the ability to understand the genomics of any diagnosed cancer, to really probe it and understand its future probable potential to persist, to grow, to metastasize, and to take your life. Those ones need intervention now. The rest of them, no.
Great. Thank you so much for that answer and this whole presentation. I'm going to be sharing it with a few women in my life. So I really appreciate that. Wonderful. So with that, if we could unmute the audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're a blessing.
Hallelujah.